The nurse is wanting to do that. And, yeah. No, she's doing DC. I mean, like, does it matter? Okay. So,
but they need to be like tied into.
I should do Image or Dark Horse because no one will get it. So, hey, all right, folks, it is October the 22nd, and we're going over chapter 59, which has to do with the Franciscan and the Dominican order, and it has to do with friars that are going to be important for the spreading of Christianity throughout like Asia and the Americas and Africa, and they're also going to have a big part to play somewhat in like the Inquisition later, and also, well, at least the Dominicans will. And gosh, I was going to say something else. Oh yeah, the Crusades. So kids in the class already talked about it for a minute. I'm going to show the images. Shh, guys. And the terms on the board we have are Benedictine Limitations, Friars, Francis of Assisi, Dominic of Osma, and their similarities. So first, let me go over the images, and I'll unpause this. So to start with, like Benedictine Limitations, remember your book's correct to point out that the Benedictine orders, Ariel, have to do with it's based largely off Eastern monasticism, and that had a lot to do, hey guys, with self-reflection, living away from not just self-reflection, but also a life of intense prayer, being shut away from the world, and in some cases even how they would have vows of silence, right? And then these were called, what's the term for that? I forgot. It'll come to me later. So yeah, so they were very cut off from the world. They would, however, help run things like hospitals and orphanages and schools for kids who want to grow up in the clergy or be clerics, but they didn't go out into the world. They stayed on their monasteries, which were essentially estates, like we've seen with nobility. This guy here, Francis of Assisi, he's going to grow up to be a rich, spoiled brat, and he spends a lot of his time going around town and drinking parties with his friends and things like that. And then one day he's going to have a religious revelation. He's going to have an existential experience, and he's going to totally devote his life to Christ. And so when he does this, he's going to swear off his wealth, and he's going to start studying Christianity. He's going to spend a lot of his time living out with the poor and the sick. So he makes sure that he brings them food, he educates them, he goes about trying to bring about their conversion. It's going to be very popular. And he's even going to have one time where he's going to actually go to the Sultan, and he's going to try to convert the Sultan to Christianity. So he's trying to go out even to places where a lot of Christians were scared to go. He's going to be wildly popular, and you're going to have a lot of people who are going to imitate what he does. And even though he was never a priest, he's still going to be given a lot of status within the church. And so they're going to found an order, a religious order, kind of like the Benedictine monks. And so from this order, you're going to have a lot of acts of charity start coming back to Europe in the name of Christianity. And so a lot of poor people for the first time are actually going to be preached to instead of just having mandatory service and stuff like that. So you're going to see where Christianity is going to start going a bit back towards its roots in its early days. He has kind of like a philosophy about him. One of his is that like all things are created by God, therefore they're all in many ways related. And so there's like stories of him like preaching to nature and birds. He's going to see things as being inherently good instead of within a lot of Middle Ages, a lot of material things are seen as inherently bad. And the only good thing to look forward to is heaven. Well, he's going to point out that there's actually a lot of good within the world. And so this is going to be a mindset breaker for a lot of people in Europe. He also is known for having kind of like a fondness for death at the same time, though. So not just for like creation in the world around him, but also he's going to look at death as something not to be fearful of, but something to look forward to uh, because of that hope he has for reaching into the next life. So yeah, he was a very, very popular character. That's one thing about the 13th century is you have a big revival in Christianity, where it becomes something a bit more down to earth for everyday people, and a lot less that has to do with simply something that your Lord kind of runs over and the peasants participate in with little understanding. This guy here, Dominic of Osma, he's going to come out of Spain, and his whole thing is still going around preaching to the people, but it's going to be more that has to do with education and also the idea of orthodoxy. And so they're going to be very devout to the teachings of the Catholic Church and get rooting out what they see as heresy. And so they're about educating people and trying to keep people from breaking off from the church into separate groups. Because many people saw that if you separated from the church and tried to do Christianity in other ways, that it would lead to like the ruin of Christianity as a whole. So, especially before the Protestant Reformation, people thought that division would lead to disaster, right? And so, whereas the Franciscans wore brown robes that were usually very coarse, the Dominicans wore either black or white. And they're known for opening up a lot of schools, and they're known for educating, especially people who are more like the upper crust of societies, like the nobility and the wealthy and things like that. And there wasn't a lot of middle class at this time, however. I'll talk about him later. So we're starting to see like a morph in all this. So the church is coming out of the churches and going out to the streets. Kind of like you might think of today. So sermons became more popular. It became something that was more for everyday people. And of course, they still took vows of celibacy, poverty, charity, and things like that. So they were still trying to live the best way they knew how to live a Christ-like life. So let's go ahead and get our notes down for the day. So Benedictine Limitations. So we talked about it some chapters before, about when these things first came about. So Hunter, do you remember anything that you read that was kind of like a limit to like what they would do for the people?
No, I guess it's in that part.
Yeah, that part.
Yeah, Edwin.
Okay. Hey, Edwin. Yeah. Thanks, Hunter. So, Edwin, what do you think? So they didn't really go out and do a lot of.
They were pretty much like commentates, but like they were at the
They were usually they stayed.
They're very solitary.
Yeah.
they stayed in like they got together, but they didn't go out and try to do that outside world.
Yeah, they were usually shut in the monasteries. And would you say, Kelby?
They're very solitary.
Yeah, very solitary.
They didn't go out very often. Stayed to themselves.
Yeah, a big part of their belief is that their job was to pray for the well-being, peace, and salvation of the world. And they believed that their prayers were very important for the order of things. So they're like, I'm sorry, I just don't have time to go out and do those things. Okay, cool. Now, what's a friar?
A human.
A human, yeah.
They were, rather than monks, they actually like went for the salvation of others.
Yeah. So they, so like monks, but yeah, they went out into the world. Yeah, first, like the whole point was like salvation of others and yourself, right? So yeah, doing like charity and preaching, right? So we're starting to see Europe Europe had systems in place for the people, but there you had to go to centers. Here we're starting to see that you're seeing social services like we might think of today. Now they're actually going into towns and they're like seeing beggars and stuff like that. They're trying to help them out. They're seeing kids or people who are being abused and they're trying to stop these things. So you can think of it as people are actually going out and trying to fix society. So that's like a new thing for Europe. Before that, I mean, it was pretty much as long as they didn't break a law, or if they were doing what they were supposed to do as far as the Lord was concerned, they didn't really care about their well-being unless it came down to crime. But here it goes beyond crime. You have people trying to help out people, even if they're, just for their betterment, right? So we're starting to see the birth of that in Europe. And remember, like I told you before, in the Middle Ages, everything was religious or it had to do with nobility. It was really one of the two. You couldn't separate religion from anything back then. There was no such thing as a purely secular thing. Like today, there are secular things. Like the federal government's supposed to be purely secular and things like that. But not so back then. All right, so Francis of Assisi. Who was he, Kelvin? Francis of Assisi.
Oh, yeah,
Here's the brown robe guy, like up there.
he was in Italy.
Yeah. So he was a rich Italian, right? Rich Italian. My grandfather would say. So what did he do after being a rich Italian?
He was a friar.
Yeah. So he's going to cast away his riches and become a friar. So yeah, this is before like you have like what we might call like popular pastors and stuff like that. You think about this as like early religious revivals, right? So, all right. So he's a friar. Hey, what's he gonna found? The Franciscans, yeah. I mean, it's named after him. It's kind of like a pattern here. They kind of name them after the person. So founds the Franciscans, who, but what did they do? They what, basking a lot? What? Fasting. Yeah. Francis was known for that. He was known for doing the typical major like pious things back then, like extreme fasting and just intentional suffering.
They spread rapidly.
Yeah, who spread rapidly. That's true. It's true. They're very popular. So this spread rapidly, but what did they do? What would they do? Who did they target?
War.
Yes. Helped the poor with charity and preaching. So they preached the word to them. So that's the thing. Like when it comes to, even all the way today, like when it comes to like Catholics, if it's usually like Catholic acts of charity that for like the poorest part of the world, like the slums of India or like little villages in Africa and stuff like that, it's usually people who are affiliated with Franciscans who are out doing it usually. And so it's like still around today. It's like And many of them still wear brown robes or sometimes gray, from what I've seen. So they go around still doing that today. So we still have these orders that like last hundreds of years. All right, so yeah, people need food. That's good. Dominic of Osma. So we're going to see like a little bit of a change, something a little different. So, Alondra,
Mhm.
can you tell me a little bit about Dominic and what he done did?
I just on
Yeah.
Okay. The Dominic guy?
Dominic. Guy.
He's in student theology.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to say well educated.
Clergy man?
Yeah. So yeah, he was a priest.
He went to Albigen's. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, he was trying to bring back some guys from heresy. See, like usually if somebody was like doing something that was heretical, they would try to have people going in to like either teach them or debate with them to try to tell them why they think they're wrong so much before it got like to the court stuff.
Um, there was an order called the Dominicans, which is
Yeah.
like his followers, basically.
Yeah, he founded the Dominicans. And this is going to be a real big deal because they're going to play a big part in spreading Christianity to like Mexico and South America and stuff like that. We'll talk about that later. The Franciscans, I think, are going to make big waves in like Japan until like thousands of them get crucified. So Dominicans, and combat heresy. So they're going to be a big part of the Counter-Reformation. We're going to talk about later. Not heresy. And heresy is essentially whenever somebody teaches things that are seen as against like church teaching, right? It's against the dogma. So, combat heresy. Who did they mostly target? They educated,
The nobles.
the wealthy and the nobles. So you see, because here's the thing, a lot of the things that were seen as heretical to the church at the time was coming from the rich nobility. And mostly, however, most heretical movements within the Catholic Church were actually started by priests. So that was something, like they always had a problem with their priest running off and eventually kind of teaching things that were kind of like antithetical to church teaching. So, all right, so we got that. So, what were some of the similarities these two orders had?
Both founded something.
Yeah. So, we'll say both founded in the 13th century. So that's the late Middle Ages. That's like right at the end. We're about to hit the Renaissance. And what's really going to spur the Renaissance is the Crusades. The Crusade is going to be like that catalyst that starts that whole reaction. So, around the 13th century, what did they both have to like do? And, like, if you were in this order, you donned those robes and you took your vows and you shaved the top of your head off. What were you supposed to do?
Dressed the same.
That's right. Yeah. So they had the robes. Did they have to do anything else? There's like some bold words there that we don't use day to day. Yeah. They had to do the normal church sacramental stuff. They had to preach. They what?
They had to preach.
Preach. Yes. So
Is there yet?
yeah, they were supposed to go out and preach, not simply just wait till people went to church service. So, here, I'll help you out. Also, they had to have vows of poverty, chastity, or like, not even that, celibacy. like celibacy, chastity, and the whole thing. They were supposed to go out and beg for food. Like that was supposed to be a sign of their poverty. They don't not only have no means of making money, but they have to go out and hope that people will help feed them. So they didn't even ask for payment for what they did. So yeah, and so here we have like you have, and this the thing is, both of these are not started by the church. These are started by people who are like, hey, there's big gaps that are not working out with the way that Christianity is working out right now, and they're trying to go out and fix some of these things. And that's what you're going to find throughout European history all the way after this. You're going to find Christians are going to come up. Some of them stay in the Catholic Church. Some of them break away, but they all agree that things are supposed to be fixed within society and religion. So one thing you don't really see, though, is people like denouncing it altogether, though. You don't really see like ardent atheism or like the rise of new religions or something like that. It's always within that umbrella of Christianity. So there you have it. All right, folks, short and sweet. That's going to end our lecture for today. I'll get the notes up for you. We're not going to have a video or a lecture tomorrow. I'm going to post a reading assignment for you with a little something for you to do with that as well. And I'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye.